You ever done a fantasy football podcast on weed?
Welcome. We'll start right there. The voice you just heard is our first special guest to this very program. His name is Coley Mick. He goes by the Mick Man. What else do you go by?
It's fucking 1 and 3.
Ooh.
That's what I go by.
You want to get right into it? I thought we were going to start with some pleasantries first and get
There's
into
nothing
it.
pleasant about this league, Henry.
Yeah, at all. You're in a tough spot right now, but the fact that you're here is just big for us. We're just happy to have you here. Host of Mixtape, host of The Yak, a multi-talented person who just crushes it, whether he's on the basketball court, whether he's on the Instagram account, Twitter account, whatever he's doing for Barstool Sports. He's putting the fuck on for us, but not doing as well in fantasy football, sadly.
Yeah, I do have a question before we get into your actual league. You were actually the first, do you think you were the first hire for the social media department? You were the first person who was like, oh, we got to get someone that's doing this Twitter stuff. They found Coley Mick. Do you want to give a quick, because you're a two-time employee here.
Give us a synopsis of why.
I'm a 3-time employee here.
Holy shit.
But it actually started at your 21st birthday, Henry.
Sorry, but a long time before that.
Well, I thought you were talking about the social media aspect of it. But I was an intern, second intern ever behind Devlin. UMass always representing in the intern gang.
Same class?
No, he was the year before me, so he was the first by himself. Next summer, I was that class. Worst intern ever. All I really did was show up. As everyone here knows, you're not given a lot of direction here, which I floundered with that freedom. I squandered it. It wasn't for me. I needed a little bit of rigidness to my schedule.
So what was your day-to-day like during that summer?
A lot of sitting, a lot of staring at my computer. I was blogging then, but it was like long form. And you remember the blog back then was like, if you went more than 5 sentences, it was way too long. I wasn't that curt. I was much more long form. Dave was like, this stinks. You're the worst writer I've ever seen. And I was up out of there after that summer. Stayed in like loose contact, and then when I was just doing security, just was grinding Twitter, just tweeting like you fucking wouldn't believe, Adam.
That was just out of passion, right?
Yeah, it was love of the game, and it was just because otherwise I was going to kill myself because I was a dreadful job.
Dude, but I think that what you present to people, the average listener, just the Joe Schmo eating a sloppy Joe at home, is that you can tweet your way out of a good or out of a bad situation by just being good at Twitter. Like, you can just be good at Twitter, concentrate on doing what you love, and that could pick you up out of a security job.
Yeah, it was pretty fucking lucky. That was right place, right time more or anything. When I went to for the first time anyone reached out, Gaz was like, hey, we're doing Hank's 21st birthday. We haven't seen you in a while. You should come through.
Gaz just invited you?
Yeah, he just invited me.
On some random shit?
Yeah, he just DM'd me. He was like, come on through. I was like, sure. I hadn't seen anyone. I hadn't even met Henry before.
Hankapalooza, no.
Yeah. He came up to me. He was sober as a bird, some would say. And he was like, are you Coley? I was like, sure am. And that was the most we talked that night. He wasn't really in the talking state.
I ended up getting kicked out of my own birthday party.
That's true. That was very funny. But Dave, for like an hour, just kept asking me about Twitter. Like, he just was so fixated on it because he saw me on there like round the clock. And so I took that as like...
What were his questions? What kind of stuff was he asking? Like, how do you be good at Twitter? Or like, why are you on Twitter?
Why am I on it as much as I am? Like, who are these other people that like you're retweeting? Like Dragonfly Jones type people. So like, just what was it? Because like that was back. Like, if anytime any of Dave's like old tweets get pulled, those even have like 3 retweets like max. Like, it was just a different space back then. So no one quite understood it. I didn't either. I was just getting these tweets off. But I took that as like they're looking to get into the social media game. So I went in a week later on the heels of Hank almost getting promptly fired. And I went in unannounced, which Dave doesn't appreciate. He said, what the fuck are you doing here? I pitched him Twitter. He said, that's not a job. I left with my tail between my legs. Fast forward a year later, they call me up. They said, we've got this brilliant idea for a social media job. They had me try out against one of the Chicago guys. I can't remember which one, but they had me try out head to head. No. One of the guys who's with Chicago now. I can't remember which one it was, but I blew him out of the fucking water.
Let's go.
And then a week at the beginning of October, so 4 years ago, like today, I was hired full time.
Wait, when we moved into the new office?
So 5 years ago.
3 years ago.
4 years ago.
4 years ago, yeah.
Wait, you were there a year before we moved to the new office?
Yeah.
Right, yeah. So 4 years ago.
So 4 years ago. So I've been back officially 4 years today. Just a weird coincidence, but 4 years ago today. And while Dave was offering me the job, we got into a 20-minute argument about whose idea it actually was to have a social media guy, me or him.
Damn, why would you even get into that? I guess you just didn't know Dave that well at this point.
Oh, I knew him very well. I've known Dave longer than really everyone but Gaz.
Yeah.
How do you know Dave?
So I was an
originally?
intern in 2011, and I was on Barstool in 2010 for my videos I made for homework.
Well, when I first started working at Barstool, which is about a year and a month after when you were talking about, I think my first day, maybe the end of one of my first days, I wound up on the fire escape with both of you two fellas.
That's true.
And we partook in some vitamins, cuzzy.
Brainstorming.
And I was like, oh, you know what? Everything's gonna be just fine here. So
and then you left.
Yeah, that's true. That's true.
Wait, when was your third time? Intern summer.
So
was one.
When the move happened to New
October
York,
2004. Oh yeah.
I wasn't included in that.
When did you find out that you weren't included? I forgot. Can we get into this?
There wasn't like it just was obvious
you and Millmore wasn't either.
Yeah, Millmore wasn't either. It was just super obvious that a move was happening and I wasn't. So
it was like the announcement came and it was like we're going to. Was it when the announcement?
No, because the
it
announcement was like in the winter. So this was like
it was announced in like March or April. I think.
Yeah, but we had to like sign like non-disclosures like around Christmas, and so I got it at that point because it had only been a few months. But then it was like June. And I was like, well, all right, they haven't said anything. And, like, how much I was getting paid at the time, like, I knew I couldn't afford to be anywhere around here. So I was like, well, what the fuck? I knew I had to get out of, like, my parents' house. Like, it wasn't a great situation. I'm not trying to bring the mood down. So I just wanted to get out of there. And I ended up applying for a job at Complex. And they asked me for, like, a social media job. They asked me, they're like, so how many people work over at Barstool, like, on your team? I was like, what team? They're like, how many social people do you have over there? I was like, it's just me. And they were like, you're hired. And so they were like, we'll give you a deal right now or you get no deal. So I was like, well, that's kind of fucked up. So I signed it.
Damn. So you're kind of fucked up for signing it and just backing out of it.
Well, I was like, no, I fucked over Complex big time, but I don't give a shit. But I called Dave, and it was
and they were like, sign it, move to New York.
Yeah, and they were giving me a substantial raise to what I was making. I was like, this is great. I'm gonna live in New York, and I called Dave, and I was like, I'm putting in my 2 weeks. And it was the first time I ever called him, and he picked up the phone and didn't say who is. Like, usually picks up, he goes, this is Dave Portnoy. This is the only time I've called him, and he said, what's up, Coley? And my stomach just sank. I was like, I made the wrong call completely. I hung up. I sat there. I was like, fuck.
Wait, what did you say? What do you mean what you hung up? You have a conversation
Yeah, we had
with
a conversation.
Saying.
It was probably the most civil conversation we've ever had because he was like, I didn't see this coming, but I appreciate everything you did. Best of luck. Like, it was a very, very civil conversation. I hung up, and like the second I put my phone down, it rang with him again. And he was like, the fuck do you mean you're leaving? And he was like, how much are they paying you? He matched that, and he was like, you can come to New York. Well, no, he said I have to check with Erica, who didn't know who I was. And so apparently on the phone call with Erica, she was like, well, what does this guy do? And he was like, he runs our entire social media. She was like, why wasn't he in the move in the first place?
Yes, that's actually exactly what happened with Millmore. I think I was in the office when it happened because like, we were in a meeting, and they're like, who does this? Who does this? I was like, oh, it's usually like me or Millmore. Like, I'm getting this stuff from Millmore, like graphics. Like, oh, I'm getting it from Millmore. She's like, and then like Gaz was in it too. He's like, oh yeah, he also does like this, and then she's like, why isn't he in New York? And I was like, I don't think they like he was asked.
But there are some other people that just like kind of didn't make the cut. It was like the Oregon Trail and shit. Like people were just like, yeah, you're not gonna make T-Bone, bro. R.I.P. T-Bone, man. I'm trying to think of who else.
Trent didn't make the move.
Trent didn't make the move at first. They said Nate's in, Trent's out. Unbelievable.
Yeah.
It was a tough time for some.
And I somewhat understood it because I'd only been back not even a full year. Like, I got hired in October. The move happened at the beginning of September. So I got it. But at the same time, it was like I was trying to be in all this too. Like, we were all trying to grow. I definitely wanted to be a part of it. I'm glad it worked out in the long run. But, yeah, Nate likes to bring it up once a week that I was hired by Complex.
So you left, and then it was like 2 seconds between the second phone call?
Yeah, like I hung up because
were you back on by the end of the second phone call?
He said he had to check with Erica to make sure that money was okay. And then he sent me a text like 2 minutes later, like, you're in. And then Erica called me, and she sent me over a new contract. I signed that, and then I was on my way.
So it was like a 2 minute, you were a free agent for like 2 minutes, or not even really.
Yeah, no. No, I was a Complex, and then Complex, like, I called them twice, no one picked up.
Like DeAndre Jordan's first stint with the Mavs.
Kinda, yeah.
It happened, but it didn't happen.
Yeah, and I remember it was Chris Paul and the Lakers.
Right.
That was me with Complex.
Right. It was agreed upon, and then management said, that's not going to wind up working
Yeah,
out.
and then what was supposed to be my first day, they were like, "Where are you?" I was like, "Well, I called, left a voicemail, no one called me back. I'm not coming." They were furious. Oh well.
Damn.
Bridge very burned.
Damn.
Worked out.
Unbelievable. Yeah,
Love
good
that.
for
I
you.
didn't even know that. It's the beauty of the fantasy football factory. Only here.
Yeah, Nate likes
Will you
calling
get
me
that?
Complex Coley. I don't care for that.
Dude, well, at least better to be Complex Coley than to have a complex like Nate, if you know what I mean, brother.
Friend.
In any case, though, let's chat about your fantasy squad. Let's talk about your team, and let's talk a little bit about your history with fantasy football, because you are the first guest that we've had on this show, but every guest that we have
First
on...
important guest.
First important guest.
I was going to say, you had Barstool Adam on.
Every guest that we have on, important or not, we ask them about how long they've been playing fantasy football, and if there's any old team names that they can remember, any fantasy football lore that they can give us to give us a sense of how long they've been in the game.
So this is going to make me look worse in comparison, but I've been playing since 2002, mostly through Yahoo, which is what we're using. And then in like the early 2000s, I was a big Yahoo like message board guy, like giving out advice. So if I had any foresight whatsoever, I could have just been a fantasy writer, because those guys don't really know what the fuck they're talking about.
Whoa.
They're just guessing. No, I said writer, not podcaster.
Oh, yeah, of course.
Listen,
Yeah, we don't write this shit.
listen over there, Henry. But I was big on that, and I had I was doing, when it was really bad, I was doing like 16 teams a year. Like I would
16.
I had like 4, because you could only have max 4, so I would have 4 different logins for all these teams. I was getting into arguments with full-grown adults, calling them idiots, all
That's
sorts
more
of
than
stuff.
a full-time job.
You know, well, I mean, I was like in 8th grade. Like I didn't have anything. I was playing with my dick, and I was doing fantasy football. That was it. And I was doing mid-year drafts, like getting more teams. Like it was an addiction. It was bad.
That does sound like a pure addiction.
So by the time I got to college, I whittled it down to like 1, 2 max, because it was just like,
Thank God.
Yeah, no, who knows where I'd be today?
in a gutter somewhere,
Yeah.
face down.
Yeah, with a
Sucking dick for fantasy points.
syringe full of fantasy points.
Right.
Yeah, backup running backs.
backup running backs?
Some flexes.
Does anyone have a handcuff I could get?
Yeah, and Yahoo used to track like the top 100 best teams, and I was routinely, when I started focusing on just a couple, routinely in the top 10 nationally for fantasy football.
What?
Yeah. So I used to be.
What do you
the real
mean?
deal. Yeah, I'm not even. I wish I was kidding, because that makes me look so much worse, and I'm fucking 1-3 now.
You're saying that at one point in time you were in the 1 percentile
Yeah.
of all
Of
fantasy
Yahoo
players
of public leagues. Yeah.
in the country.
Yahoo would invite you if you were good enough to these private leagues that only Yahoo set up, and I would get invites to that, but you had to pay money to get into them, and I was a broke high school kid, so I couldn't do it.
Who were on your teams at these points? Like, who were players that you were like, I need this guy on my team so I can dominate the 2004 league?
And what happened?
As you noticed during our draft, I like to try and nip, when we get in the later rounds, nip some guys who maybe a little too early for others, but so like a big guy for me was Mike Vick the year with the Eagles. I got him in the last round. I handcuffed Brady and Moss, like a lot of people did, but I handcuffed Brady and Moss in 2007. Just stuff like that. Like Dante Culpepper, his year, was him or McNair who split the MVP. So no, it was Culpepper the year he probably should have won MVP but didn't. I was big on him. I was early to adapt, drafting quarterbacks a little bit earlier than everyone else before this whole you don't even need quarterback wave. Stephen Che trying to claim he invented the streaming running backs thing, or the no running back thing.
Can I just say that I got a DM from somebody who's in Stephen Che's league where he bragged about all his shit so much. He's in dead last place, hasn't won a game, and has the fewest points of anybody in his league.
Hate to see it.
All that shit he was talking, one of our first guests that we had on this podcast, and he has completely embarrassed himself, and he thought we would never know.
And embarrass his podcast.
He's embarrassed his podcast. He's trying to take away our credibility, which we've worked so hard to build.
Yeah, so I told him I was going to take Josh Gordon in the 3rd round, and he just guffawed and laughed. And then I told him the thing I just told you guys about my history, and he was taken aback.
Yeah.
So
Because he's been in the game for a long time. of the guests that we've had on so far, Clem has been in the game since the 90s. Smitty's been in the game since the 90s. Steve Che since the 90s. So it's like a pretty strong refrain that everyone who really cares about fantasy has cared for kind of a long time.
I started with baseball. Fantasy baseball was the first that I went into because I grew up,
Roto.
Yeah, I grew up like Red Sox fan. Like I wanted all of them on my team. I wanted Pedro, Manny, all that. And then I didn't even know fantasy football was this thing until like baseball season was winding down and Yahoo was like, sign up for this. So I was like, all right. And that's kind of taken over all fantasy.
Now, do you have one team name you always stuck with, or do you mix it up? You got some?
So the league.
We can't go through all 18 teams
no,
We'd be here.
Yeah, no. My go-to for recent years for like the money league, I only do 2 leagues now. That one money league and now the Barstool Fantasy Football Factory League of Extraordinary Gentlemen. So in that league, I go with Michael Pornman's Milk Baths.
Whoa.
Story behind that, Tom Brodude, Philadelphia tweeter, legend of the game.
R.I.P.
He used to tweet the picture of Michael Pornman, which is just this guy whose ass is showing, looking over his shoulder. I'm sure you've seen it on Twitter.
I always thought it was a coach.
That guy's name is literally Michael Pornman.
It's a great name.
And Tom used to also buy a shit ton of milk just for the jokes and take a bath in it. There came Michael Pornman's Milk Baths.
Ironic.
I've won.
Nope.
No, that's it. Well, it's a strong segue into this week, which was Rivalry Week, because as your predecessor Tom Brodu did before you will now have to sit in what some are calling a vat, some are calling a baby bath, but no matter how you slice it, you're going to be sitting in a bunch of milk, spreading your butt cheeks and woofing down a bunch of cereal.
I sure will be, Ron.
That's a tough look for you, but a great look for Henry, who was your opponent in Rivalry Week. It was basically the brawl for Boston. It was a huge. It was the massacre for Massachusetts, and someone had to come out on top. It was the town versus the.
Town versus the spit.
Town versus the spit.
What's killing me is on Sunday, like I don't check my lineups while games are going on anymore because it's just unnecessary stress. So I always like to check like during the Sunday night game when there's nothing that can be done anyways.
Yeah, but you can't then will your players to victory if you don't.
But they
do
know. That. They know. Well, usually they do. This fucking team doesn't know anything. And what's interesting is I was like, oh, I must be comfortably in the lead. And Henry, what I've learned to find out, thought he was getting blown off the field, and instead he won and I fucking lost.
Who was the players that were the difference makers in this? Donnybrook. Why did you think that you were winning, and Hank, why did you think you were losing?
I started off up 20-0 with Devontae Adams, or 24-0 because of Devontae.
And I had a lot of 4 o'clock player games.
Right.
So it was like when I was looking at my team all day, it was like 20 points, like 30 points during the 1 o'clock games. I was like, I'm fucked.
Yeah.
Coley, how mad are you at Mecole Hartman for getting 0.9 points?
I'm mad at the Chiefs for finally drawing a line in the sand and deciding what's unacceptable behavior for Kansas City Chiefs culture. And apparently fumbling is it. Because they decided to not throw to him after that.
But the beating women and children.
Yeah, that's okay. That's
good.
okay. Yeah, you can do all that as a Chief. You can't fumble though.
No, they have a Mecole. They're specifically against Mecole though, because Sammy Watkins fumbled and they didn't deprive him of the ball. I think that Mecole is being very unfairly persecuted by the squad.
Didn't care for it.
You drafted him though. You like what you saw out of Mecole early. Was there anybody else that you had your eyes on during the draft that you're going to be so bold as to say that you wanted this year?
I was very heavy on Dalvin Cook, and if it weren't for Spencer fucking Hawes, he would be on my team. So that one hurts. But although
Spencer Hawes of all people, that's such a random like.
Just a kick in the dick.
If it was PFT, it'd be like whatever. Like he's
right.
Like Spencer Hawes was. Spencer Hawes was in the draft? What?
Big Cat had no idea who Dalvin Cook was, and now all of a sudden he's on PMT.
Yeah, Big Cat's never heard of him, and PMT is now one of the top 3 teams in the league.
Yeah. One thing that's also fucked me in this league, and it's why I pitched an auction draft heading into this, is I've been only doing auctions for the last 5 or 6 years. I haven't even done Snake in a while, and it really is a different strategy. So going into this, that is why you see me take guys like a round or 2 ahead, just so I can get them and not have to wait and hope that they're still there. Like Frank Gore, that was another guy. That was the only guy Tyler wanted me to take. I was like, no one's going to even be looking at Frank Gore. I think Glenny, someone snaked him a few rounds before I was even considering him. Just a real kick in the dick.
You mentioned Tyler. He's your podcast co-host. How I was wondering, because I know in the beginning it was like the mixtape team. How involved has he been?
He didn't want to pay, so he's been very little involved.
He's like a not a majority owner.
No,
a silent investor.
Not. Yeah, I won't say that.
Are you about to call him a minority, bro? What the fuck is this, dude? A minority owner, huh?
At least one team has him.
He's like, yeah, it's like it's like Caleb. Caleb on my team is in the same situation.
Deshaun Watson's really
Although
been
he's
letting
gone,
me down.
but so does he even like have any input with you whatsoever?
No, like when I made the trade with Smitty, there was no consultation. It was just we needed 2 Devontaes.
How do you feel about that trade, by the way? Because the public on Twitter seemed to think you won.
I didn't care for that. I felt comfortable with the trade. I didn't care for everyone in the world also agreeing I won that trade.
But then Smitty was on these airways last week being like, yeah, won that trade, like great trade. So
yeah, I mean, I'm sure he does think that. Otherwise, I don't know why he would have made that trade. But I didn't want Todd Gurley in the draft. I only took him because he was the only running back worth a shit still on the table by the time that pick came up. And he's been so infuriating through 4 weeks. I'm just glad I don't even have to deal with that.
Yep.
I have no expectations for Devontae Freeman. If he gives me anything, it's a bonus.
Damn, Big Tennessee.
I wouldn't count on him giving you anything.
I agree.
He's given me nothing either. So
Devontae Adams, I'm not thrilled he has turf toe, but other than that, he's been a great addition so far.
And anytime you can just scoop up 2 Devontaes, got it.
Correct. Yeah.
That's actually probably unprecedented. There's maybe been, my guess would be fewer than 5 trades that have included multiple Devontaes that have ever gone down in fantasy football.
Especially going the same way.
Yeah, 2 on the same team, you might be looking at a 1-of-1 anomaly, which is rarefied air to be.
And the other way being all 3 seconds.
Yeah, Todd Gurley the second, Allen Robinson the second,
and
Ronald
that's
Jones the second.
assuredly never happened.
No.
That's so. Congratulations on being part of history, dude.
History makers in this league. That's what we do.
That's really big. Are you gonna turn things around this year and go out and win this, or do you think that it's going to be an uphill battle? You're a little bit thin at running back. I'm looking at your roster right now. You're looking at Shady McCoy, Chris
Shady's
Thompson.
been getting burned though. I like Shady. I like what Shady's been doing on
Good
that
upside.
offense. Yeah, a lot of upside. He's been putting in work every week. Chris Thompson I don't love, but Washington will be playing from behind a lot. I assume they're going to be throwing the ball a lot. It really fucked me, Tevin Coleman getting hurt. Didn't anticipate that. Don't care for it. I would go so far to say I've been trying to pry James White away from the walk rat bags, big rat walk bags.
Apparently Marty's the biggest bitch in the world, which honestly is like the most counter, like the way his stance on trades is like the most anti-Marty Mush
Blows my mind.
thesis of all time.
Because he's supposed to be freewheeling.
Right. What he says, like he
won't allow any trades.
veto.
Much.
I'm sorry. I was
Veto.
blanking on the word veto.
Veto, yeah.
He vetoes all trades.
Bam Margera's
regardless.
uncle.
Yes.
Heading into the weekend after I made the trade with Smitty, I was negotiating with them, and then me and Big Ev were about to strike a deal. Mush walked away, gave him fake information to log into his team, so that because it's only on Mush's phone. So Ev was about to strike a deal. We couldn't do it because Mush gave him falsified information. Kind of hurts.
I would get him out. I would try and get Mush the fuck out of the league if I were you.
These guys haven't even paid yet.
I mean, I would try and get him the fuck out of the league.
Commish?
I don't know about getting them out of the league.
We're in October. People haven't paid.
This is the first I've heard of the situation you're talking about, so that will definitely be taken into consideration.
I think James White should be taken off their team and just put on.
He was the sole. We had the discussion last week about the trade being commissioner. Only he was the sole reason for that because I just happened to be over there talking to you, and he mentioned, "Well, I'm just going to veto the trade,"
which is insane. He didn't even look at it.
It's honestly like. It's disrespectful to the league.
He's loose cannon.
Yeah, so
you can't be vetoing things if you haven't paid by October.
Agreed.
Insane.
Agreed. We're gonna have to shake him down.
Absolutely. Well, Coley, we appreciate you coming out here and telling your side of the story. And while we're not going to be rooting for you to win the league because we're actually in the league ourselves, so like if you win, then we can't. I'm gonna wish you a hearty middle of the pack finish. That's my hope for you, man.
I was envisioning what radio would look like if I did come in last, and it's going to be 12 hours of just miserable human being.
Like you're just going to bitch?
About specifically, I think I'm going to spend 1 hour on each player on my team. Just chew them out.
Dude, I don't even know what I would do if I had all that radio time. I guess I would do like live commentary of movies, or read a book.
You can think you could prepare as much as you want, and whatever you prepared would be over in an hour and a half.
Without question. Preparing would be the dumbest thing you could do. You just got to go in there and see what happens.
Just freewheel it?
Yeah.
And what can you just like watch movies if you're like talking a little bit over it or something like that? Or
that's actually a pretty good idea.
Or like read a book, read a Harry Potter book.
I'd probably
I've
do
heard
something
some
like
people
that.
Just like give someone a
just
live
to pass
reading.
the time myself.
Dude, but if that winds up happening, I'm gonna contact Harry Potter's lawyers and tell them that people have been disseminating their material without their rights, and see if a lawyer can get on real quick within the next couple hours and shut that shit down. Yeah, because that I feel like would be cheating, and I want to make it as hard as possible for someone if they have to do this.
Can you give a quick prediction for your basketball game tonight? Who is playing?
I don't even know, dude.
Damn, bro, that fucking bummed me out, man. Fuck.
People. I'm the only person who showed up to every game.
Is Dana?
No, Dana wasn't there last week.
What about this week?
He's there today. Yeah.
Snapchat Steve's debut. I'm excited.
He is having his debut. Yeah, we have a lot of debuts week 4 into the season.
Mikey Podcast.
I don't know. He wasn't there last week. I assume he'll be there, but I don't know.
Well, good luck without him, dude.
How many texts on the season? You're on a Rasheed Wallace pace so far.
The last 2 games I haven't gotten any.
That's incredible. You're on a Rasheed Wallace pace. Only 2 games without one.
Yeah. Last game. 2 games ago when I was there.
No, that was a delayed game. That's wildly different.
Oh, of course.
Listen, the refs told us don't give the ref the ball right away.
Delay of game, technical foul, yes.
Yeah, but it wasn't the same as week 1.
Okay,
so it's a different type of technical?
Wildly different.
So how many technicals are we talking about?
I've gotten 2.
3.
No, I didn't get 2 the first game. Otherwise, I would have been ejected, and I wasn't ejected.
Okay.
I've gotten 2 technicals in 3 games. That's below my career average.
I don't know why you're trying to talk out. Yeah, you're trying to like talk down the amount of technicals you get. You're a technical foul guy.
And Rasheed Wallace was a great player.
No,
sometimes you just need something to get that motor.
In my heyday, there was no one who was getting. I averaged over a tech a game. That's why it's like I'm averaging less. That's I'm
debatably.
And you know who will have that debate with you? Coley Mick, anytime you fucking want it. I promise you that. A world-class debater, a world-class human.
I'm just a prick.
And a world-class guest. Thanks for coming on, pal.
Boys, thank you very much.